In 1950s Italy, Ciccio Paradiso, a carefree and fearless man who stands up for justice, enjoys his time with the woman he is in love with, Bianca Schettino, the daughter of a powerful autocrat named Cumpa Schettino. He kisses her on the mouth and leaves after asking her to meet him later. Bianca goes back to work with her family, but back at the house of Ciccio, his absence is noticed by everyone. It is also revealed that Ciccio is already a married man with a wife and kids, whom he has not seen for a while. Ciccio returns home and gets ambushed by another woman he used to see called Linda, who accuses him of neglecting her and spending time with Bianca. She also tells him that everyone in town knows about it, but he ignores her and cheers up his son, Rocchino, with a black lamb he brought with him. Later that night, he goes to a bar where an aristocrat, Don Luigi, sits at a table and buys olives from a poor farmer, Domenico. Luigi gives the farmer a very unfair price and disrespectfully shouts when Domenico mentions that the money won't last him even for 3 months. Unable to tolerate the injustice, Ciccio loudly speaks and offers to buy the olives for a good price. Then, he boldly confronts Luigi about his unfair treatment, causing him to leave the place. Ciccio also offers to buy the next round for everyone at the bar and allows everyone to celebrate with him. In the morning, Ciccio wakes up at his house and sits down for breakfast. He angrily speaks to his father, Cenz Udiavul, about how the farmers are getting paid a very low price, but his father tells him to mind his own family business. Then the jealous Lucia, Ciccio's wife, starts to ask him where he was last night and accuses him of sleeping with another woman. However, Ciccio doesn't engage in the argument. Instead, he leaves to meet with Bianca for a small picnic under a tree. As he spends a great time with Bianca listening to music from a phonograph, Luigi goes to complain to Schettino about the disrespectful treatment he received from Ciccio. After hearing the rant of Luigi, Schettino promises to talk to Ciccio and lets him leave. Schettino then orders a law officer to invite all the important families of the town to the dinner and assures him that he will take care of Ciccio. Outside of a church in the town, Ciccio's friend warns about Schettino finding out about his affair with Bianca. His friend tells him there are a lot of women in the town, but Ciccio tells him that Bianca is different and claims that nobody can understand what he feels for her. At night, while Ciccio is walking alone, he receives a message about Schettino wanting to talk to him. He goes to meet him, but the other farmers are also gathered at the door arguing. He calms everyone down and knocks on the door after promising to handle everything. Schettino receives him along with his son and allows him to have a seat. Schettino orders Bianca to serve them drinks. He then reminds him about his grandfather, who left his wife and 3 kids after meeting a girl. Then, he starts to ask him about the issue with the olives and Luigi. Ciccio doesn't back down and mentions that Luigi built his fortune on the backs of the poor people who sweated blood on the land for a whole year. Ciccio says that he earns 3 times these people without doing anything. Ciccio fearlessly declares that he is not afraid of a fight, and from now on the price will be determined by the farmers. Schettino sarcastically laughs and appreciates his bold move. He shakes his hand and lets him go after telling him that he has matters he needs to tend to. Meanwhile, Luigi, who was driving his car, gets tricked into stopping by Domenico and his friend. They forcefully take him out and beat him up. The next day, as Ciccio works on the farm and Bianca prepares her bed, Luigi files a complaint at the police. During the night, Ciccio sneaks into Bianca's bedroom and starts kissing her. He takes her to the barn, where he speaks romantic words to her while caressing her. Bianca asks him if he loves Lucia, and Ciccio admits that he does love his wife, but tells her that she is something entirely different. After hearing this, Bianca takes her nightgown off, and the two make love in the barn. Ciccio was almost caught by Cosimo, Schettino's son, the next morning after he slept very late in the barn. He barely escaped with the help of Maria, Bianca's sister. After Schettino peacefully talks to one of the farmers who assaulted Luigi, Ciccio arrives at the church where he meets with Lucia and Rocchino. Lucia tells him that his son was not there when she woke up because he went looking for his father. Lucia pours out her heart and tells him that she is at the church to understand why this is all happening to her, but Ciccio tells her that he loves her, but they want different things. He hugs her and tries to console her. Bianca and Ciccio meet the next day at a place that has walls made out of piled stones, but they are followed by Cosimo, who reports back to Schettino. After confirming the rumors, Schettino gets angry and throws around his chair. He asks Maria to come with his shirt and asks her about her sister. She covers for her, saying she had gone to their aunt to bring flour, and coincidentally, Bianca arrives with the flour in her hand. Schettino calls Bianca to his office and insults her. Bianca strips naked and tries to embarrass her father, but Maria covers her up and takes her to her room. Meanwhile, Ciccio arrives in the middle of the night at his house. He goes to his son and wife's room, who are both asleep. After staying there a while, Ciccio sits outside with a letter, which he plans to give Schettino in his hands. In the morning, he goes to visit Schettino in the morning and gives him the letter. Schettino says he couldn't read it quickly and stops Ciccio from reading it also. Then he starts to talk about the fertile land of the country. He pokes a hole in the ground and invites Ciccio to take a look. But as soon as Ciccio knelt, Schettino hit him on his head with the shovel. Ciccio dies instantly, and Schettino cuts out his private part using his knife. Then, he leaves after putting it in his mouth. Later, Lucia was the first to find out from Ciccio's family, after Scisso's body was found on a horse in the middle of the street. Lucia cries in agony as the people of the town gather. Bianca also cries out loud, throwing rocks at the gate of their house while Schettino sits inside. Ciccio's father cleans the body of his son and covers him up after crying on it. Meanwhile, in the city, Antonio, Ciccio's twin brother who works in a workshop, gets a call from the manager and hears about his brother's death. He arrives home for the funeral and meets his mother first. Then, he hears about the way his brother died from his sister and meets with Lucia afterward. Bianca walks out of the house to see the body of her lover, and when her brother tries to stop her, she threatens to stab him with a pitchfork. At the funeral, Lucia decides to carry the coffin along with other women Ciccio had affairs with, including Linda. As they walk down the street followed by a lot of people, Bianca watches from afar crying. The people of town mourned his death, throwing roses at the coffin as it was passing, and Ciccio finally got to the resting place. In the morning, Antonio goes to the police station to ask about the death of his brother, but the officer doesn't give him any helpful information. When he leaves the station, a brother of Pasquale Morano, a man who was arrested the night of Ciccio's death, shouts at him and blames Ciccio for his brother's arrest. One of Chico's friends, Vincenzo, gets him to leave, but Antonio asks about the man. Antonio learns about his brother's promiscuous lifestyle from his friend, who also tells him about Bianca. Antonio comes back home and finds his sister arguing with Jens, who decided to let Chico's death go, mentioning his son made a mistake. After everyone leaves the room angry, Jens tells him that Ciccio gave the people false hope and didn't have enough power to fight the corrupt officials. Then the quiet Antonio tells him that he will be leaving tonight. And before he leaves the room, his father advises him to forget about the place and never come back. But Antonio goes to visit Bianca. Cosimo, who saw him coming from afar, kidnaps her and ties her up after gagging her mouth. Then, he answers the door and talks to Antonio, who wants to speak with Schettino. Cosimo tells him that his father is sleeping and gets defensive, mentioning the Paradiso family is not welcome. Antonio confronts him fearlessly and says everyone in town knows the truth about what happened to his brother. Schettino interrupts their argument and clearly states that nobody can mess with his daughter. Antonio bravely talks like his brother about the injustice being conducted on the people, but Schettino boasts saying he has the law in his hands and asks him to leave before he kills him. After his talk with Schettino fails, Antonio prepares to leave the town and says goodbye to his family. Vincenzo walks him up to the bus leaving town, and Antonio gets inside the bus. As the bus starts moving, Antonio has a vision of his brother while he is young and decides to stay. He surprises Schettino, who was tending to his horses at the barn. He hits him on his face and forces him to lie down bleeding. Then, he kills Schettino right there and turns his attention to Cosimo, who comes to check on his father. After repeatedly hitting him on the head, Antonio also kills Cosimo. Later, Maria finds the body of her father and brother. When she cries very loudly, Bianca hears it and discovers everything when she comes to find her sister. A few days later, the two sisters find themselves being stigmatized by the people of the town for the actions of their father. They walk into a flower shop and try to buy some for themselves, but the owner tells them there is none left. Bianca gets angry and confronts the old man about making up reasons not to sell them anything. Maria pulls her sister's hand, and the sisters are about to leave, but Bianca slowly sneaks back and steals some bread. The sisters' sufferings continued as life became hard, and Bianca kept confronting everyone, including the Pope of the town's church. She angrily leaves the church after taking off her cross on her neck and throwing it on the ground. Bianca visits Luigi to ask for help with their land. He agrees to help, but tries to take advantage of her. She flees his house after stabbing him with a fork. Back in the city, Antonio is back at the workshop, but he has been troubled ever since his return. He causes an accident at work and doesn't get excited about the apartment his girlfriend found for him. His boss, who is also his girlfriend's father, calls him to his office and offers to give him a vacation, but Antonio keeps pretending everything is alright. He goes back home and writes a letter to Bianca. His girlfriend also receives a letter from him that confirms Antonio has decided to break off their engagement. After hanging out in the city, Antonio decides to go back home and arrives to meet his mother, who gives him a warm hug. Then, Antonio goes to the home of Bianca and meets Maria. She seems interested in him, but he doesn't feel the same way. So, she goes to fetch her sister, but Antonio suddenly gets up and leaves before Bianca arrives, after seeing the picture of Schettino's wife. He visits his father and confronts him about the picture he remembers falling out of Cenz's wallet when he was young. Cenz confesses that Maria is his daughter and he was the best man of Schettino, who started to beat his wife because he wanted a boy. Cenz couldn't look Maria in the eye after her mother committed suicide. Bianca, on the other hand, opens a letter from Antonio that says he has something to tell her. She comes running to Antonio, who asks her to marry him immediately. She accepts the proposal. The movie ends as they enter the church for the wedding, with the townspeople and Antonio's family members. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.